What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be doing one of our patented Warstory videos. And on my channel today we have our guest Philip Cohen. So Philip, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your VGC background?
Hey, how's it going, YouTube? My name's Philip Cohen. I've been a VGC player since 2016. Started when I played Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. It's been a long road, but I've been playing for as long as I can remember. Been a fan for years. And I
Nice.
have to thank, I gotta say, Clover helped me through a tough time when I was making this team, and it pulled through.
Yeah. And speaking of the team, so we got it on the screen right here. Philip reached out to us for a coaching session, which we built this team for him. Basically, what was the idea when you reached out, Phil? What were you trying to do in terms of like a starting point?
Well, the thing is, I wanted to try making a team of all Great Tuskers. When that thing came out, I loved the thing. Even though it's got a weak special, the attack and HP, the speed, it was perfect. But of course, I wanted to find a way to utilize it. There was either Life Orb, Assault Vest, but then I figured I think a Focus Sash set might be worth it because this way you can survive on one last super effective hit and try to attack an opponent at the last turn to do some huge damage. But of course, I needed the right partners. Of course, Talonflame and Iron Bundle will make good partners along with a T-Tar, but I figured Flutter Mane could also work, but then why not Sylveon? Sylveon is bulking up the tanks of attacks. It can do a lot of spread damage with Hyper Voice and Throat Spray, but I also wanted to trap opponents. I figured when Wolfie's Gothitelle showed up at the Orlando Regionals, I figured that's the one. I needed Gothitelle to do tanking and trapping opponents. And
Yeah.
thus it was born.
Exactly. Yeah, and basically that was the idea with this. Normally, guys, on teams like this, you would see like a Flutter Mane over here and potential pair songs. But the idea with Sylveon, in replacement of the Flutter Mane, you get a bulkier Pokemon that can potentially just deal a little bit more damage just because you're getting a +1 boost to the Hyper Voice. That being said, the Flutter Manes are like running, choice specs, for example, but the extra bulk is always very much appreciated, especially and with that yawn pressure along with trapping opponents with Gothitelle. The 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 Flutter Mane can't really go for Yawn, right? So that's where like some synergy comes into play with like using Sylveon instead of Gothitelle. And then from there we just kind of made like general EV spreads and like potential move sets over here. So like with the Tyranitar, right, we said, very general, Rock Slide, Crunch, Terra Blast, Low Kick with Terra Flying, Assault Vest, of course, Talonflame, again, Covert Cloak with Ghost typing. Now, I've gotten this question like at least once a day. The Covert Cloak, yes, it will stop the fake out stuff, but it won't stop you from like surviving the Dragonite E-Speed stuff, especially like Arcanine. So this is where you can use the Terra Ghost to your advantage, where you can survive the Dragonite E-Speed. The Great Tusk over here is actually just a very general focus sash set, but it is adamant nature, so I wanted to, have the Great Tusk deal a little bit more extra damage. But again, you have your two ground stabs along with close combat. The Iron Bundle, we gave this one the booster energy, so this way you win like potential speed ties against other Iron Bundles that don't have the booster energy, but otherwise it's a general set. And then the Sylveon, of course, with Throat Spray, this is where you get the +1 boost. Terra Fire to resist like those steel type attacks, and of course Gothitelle, a very general bulky spread with like Fake Out, Psychic, Helping Hand, and Trick Room for extra speed control. This way against like mirror
Uh,
Tailwind teams, you can flip the Tailwind teams upside down.
Actually, it was Taunt.
It was
It,
Taunt.
fake out, no, fake out, Psychic, Taunt, and Trick Room. I didn't
Oh,
have
oh,
Helping.
oh, oh, there. Oh, I did not have
Same thing
Helping
with,
Hand. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
it's the same thing with Iron Bundle being a Ghost type and not Ice Terra.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Like I built this version of this team like a couple times and like it's slightly varied depending on the person. So yeah, all right. So we said so this one was Ghost on your team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then this one was Taunt Trick Room, right?
Yep, and it was definitely Dark Terra. Don't worry.
Yeah, okay, we got that part right. So this is the team, and luckily for Philip, he was able to take the team into Knoxville Regionals. He finished with a 6-3 result, which just managed to get him 40 CP points, 40 championship points, which means he is on his way to qualifying for Worlds, right? So Philip, we're going to go through your run, but just off the top of your head here, how did you enjoy Knoxville, and what was the experience like?
Oh my God, where do I begin? When I got there, it was like feeling with a place of community that I just wanted to join so badly. I've enjoyed my life so much with this. The people, the gaming, the cards. Oh my God, I never felt so alive. The battles were the most extreme part of my life, and the pressure I felt. let me just say, it was exciting, especially with the team. Sylveon and Gothitelle, I gotta admit, they were the MVPs of all my battles through that series.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, these two are very, very important backbone for this kind of team. Now, you did tell me a story, on the way to the venue. You managed to meet Wolf Glick, and then what happened there?
Well, I was getting ready for a lift, but then I realized my lift was not coming in. It was late. I bumped to the wolf. I had no idea he was at the same hotel I was. There was an Uber, and I briefly asked, to be honest, I was a little nervous, if he could spare a ride and I could be able to pay him. He said, sure, hop right in. I was very grateful. When we got there, I was going to pay him, but he says, no need to pay me. You can keep
Wow,
it. And I was
that
like, oh my God, thank you, man.
the world champion difference. You got to ride in a lift car with Wolf Glick, and he said, "Don't worry about it, I got you." How about that, folks? That's a story. Yeah.
It was an Uber, man. Lyft.
Oh, okay,
It
okay,
was
okay. I got you. Either way. But so that's a cool story. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna recap Philip's run through Swiss rounds, and we're just gonna talk about some of the matchups that he faced and just an overall synopsis of what went down. And this way you get an idea of how Philip decided to play this team and what he decided to do in certain matchups. So let's take a look at that. All right, folks. So now we have the list of teams and people that Philip faced. Starting with round one over here with Dakota Jin, and it was a Pelipper Pal. Okay, so this is a very familiar team with the double dragon card. This is the one that just won, right? So what was the thought process here?
Well, at first I was nervous because I just realized this was the same team that happened in Orlando's.
Right.
So I figured he was going to start with Palafin. So the best way to do it was the Goff Sylveon lead.
Yeah.
That lead actually did a lot. Since he actually ran for tailwind in the first turn, I just sprayed Hyper Voice. He actually was going to go for a Wave Crash. He did a lot of damage to Sylveon, but Sylveon survived the seeded Tailwind. I basically protected the next turn after that because he Gem Punched. I not tricked him. I Psychicked his Palafin, and it goes right out. After that, I just kept Hyper Voicing. Even before his Amoonguss could use Spore, I taunted it. This way he couldn't put it to sleep. Knocks out the Pelipper, and he brings in his next Pokemon, and then he just calls a quit on that battle.
Nice. Okay, yeah.
Second,
I mean, Gothitelle Sylveon definitely would have been my lead, of course, against a team like this. What happened in game two then?
well, this time he actually called the Iron Hands, actually it was Palafin and Pelipper again, and this time I just Hyper Voiced, and this time he was going for Gothitelle, but this time I faked out his Palafin and it did so much damage. His Palafin was at least with the red. He goes for Wave Crash, tries to do so much damage to Gothitelle, he gets a crit, which my Gothitelle is at 24 HP. Citrus Berry heals it right up. Then I just go for Trick Room again, and I Hyper Voice, clean out both his Pokemon.
Yeah.
And this time he brings out the Iron Hands this time. And just in case, before I managed to at least taunt because I thought his Amoonguss was going to be slower, but surprisingly, his Amoonguss was faster than my Gothitelle. So I managed to taunt, and he didn't spore at all. He was stuck. Although his Iron Hands did manage to take out my Sylveon, though. Thank God I didn't. Terra. I bring out Great Tusk. I managed to terrestrialize it. And then I just headlong rushed into Amoonguss and Psychic at the same time, while he takes out my he basically just drain punches into Great Tusk, doesn't knock out my Gothitelle for some reason. Then I just follow up with another headlong rush as he drain punches into Great Tusk, leaving it with like 2 HP, and we managed to get the KO on that. He didn't bring Excalibur or Dragonite even once.
No, he can't because then that's too many weaknesses to Sylveon. Like you have three things weak to Pharaoh over here, so I kind of understand it from that regard. But basically, it looks like Gothitelle Sylveon put on a lot of pressure in the beginning, and then even though you did have an Iron Hands in the back and Trick Room, like you just have a Great Tusk, and you can't really do too much there, right? It's not.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So that was a fairly easy round one there with Dakota. Now we go into round two, where we do take an L here. So this is against Michael Pope. So this is Mousehold annihilate stuff with Arcanine, Bundle, and Roaring Moon, and then there's a Sylveon of their own. So what happened here?
Well, in the first round, he brings out Roaring Moon and Arcanine. He actually had a Terra Fairy Roaring Moon
Yeah.
when I was bringing out the Gothitelle Sylveon lead, because I was hoping the Trick Room it. I do manage to get the fake out on the Roaring Moon. He gets a Snarl off in the first turn,
Right.
but it actually misses Sylveon, so I managed
Ooh.
to get a nice hit. Unfortunately, though, he does a throat chop on my Gothitelle, which one-shots it.
Oh yeah.
I, I still do another Hyper Voice landing considerable damage. I managed to bring in my Tyranitar, which was able to. I managed to Terra Flying just in case before he Will-O-Wisp, which actually missed his my my Tyranitar. After I Rock Slide and take out the Roaring Moon and the Arcanine, he brings in Annihilate and Mooshhold.
Household.
Thankful, yeah, Masshold. I'm surprised he actually bulked up instead of just going for a Rage Fist. Because he did follow me. I rock slided when he Terra Fired. I managed to get huge damage on the mouse hole, knock it out, and Annihilate was his last Pokemon standing. He does manage to Rage Fist and knock out my Tyranitar 1 Terra. Then Great Tusk comes in. Of course, he couldn't take out the Sylveon, so I Headlong Rush, and I was able to beat him on the first game.
Nice. So game one, easy there. Now what happens in game 2/3?
Game 2, he brings Annihilate and Moose Hold 4 on the first turn, and this time I bring Gothitelle and Sylveon in.
Okay.
I was gonna try figuring out it, but he actually protects. Actually, no, it wasn't Gothitelle Sylveon. It was actually Talonflame Sylveon. Right. I Tailwind on that turn. I Hyper Voiced. He actually Rage Fists into my Talonflame, which knocks it out. And I did Protect. I mean, not Protect. I Yawned into his Annihilate, which puts it to sleep,
Okay.
and managed to take out his Mousehold with a Headlong Rush. Then his Sylveon comes in, which that was the big threat. So I managed to Yawn it, and then I protect my Great Tusk, and then I managed to Hyper Voice Annihilate as it sleeps. Sylveon uses Hyper Voice, my Great Tusk survives on 1 HP, and then his Sylveon's asleep. And just when I'm just about to do an Earthquake to see if I can knock both of them out, his Annihilate wakes up on that turn, protects. I protect my Sylveon, but his Sylveon goes right down to that as my Tailwind expires. And then next, he actually brings out his Iron Bundle, which actually I was hoping is Icy Wind and Miss, but it doesn't. It knocks out my Arcanine, I mean my Great Tusk, and then he just Rage Fist into Sylveon. And my last Pokemon was T-Tar, which I knew because I wasn't sure if he was going to Rage Fist or Drain Punch. So I managed to at least Terra Flying, just in case. He actually predicts that and goes for the Rage Fist, and I lost that match.
Yeah, I would have not teared that because I know he's gonna read it. I would have just saved
Yeah.
it. Do you think if you didn't tear it, you would have had it?
Yeah, I wish I did. I wish I played right into that. And then the third match, I kind of screwed that up. I went with Sylveon and Great Tusk instead of Gothitelle my firstly, so I kind of choked on that match. After that, he just Roaring Mooned and Arcanine me on that game. He throw shots my Sylveon, and then he has a Flare Blitz to knock it out.
Mm.
As I swapped in for Gothitelle, and then I go in for Great Tusk again, and I was able to fake out his Roaring Moon, and then I basically go for a Headlong Rush to knock out the Arcanine. This is where he brings in the Iron Bundle.
Mm-hmm.
After that, he just Breaking Swipes me, then Icy Wind as I try to Trick Room, but he actually knocks out my Gothitelle, leaving T-Tar up. I do manage to not Terra into my T-Tar as the Assault Vest works. And then it was after that he brought Sylveon on, hyper voiced my team, and cleaved right through me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait a minute. Okay, yeah, that's okay. I mean, the Sylveon Gothitelle lead is actually very very strong. I would have just kept going with it, but you did fine with what you had there. If you KO'd the Gothitelle, I would imagine this thing is like adamant natured. Did he get the attack boost from the booster? Did he have a booster?
Yeah, he did have a booster energy.
Yeah,
It was attack.
yeah, that's gonna KO it. Yeah, the Jolly ones just don't do the damage anymore. Like you gotta go adamant, like with the Roaring Moon, or even like a potential Dragon Dance set.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. All right.
He did have.
Oh,
Yeah,
go
he had
ahead.
Terra Fire. He had Terra Fire on his Annihilate, and it was Ghost for Mousehold. That's right.
Mm. Oh yeah, so to prevent the fake out stuff. All right, so now we're going into round 3 with Zane. So this is a Indie Armored Core with Stonejourner Great Tusk and then Mirko Goldengo. Okay, so we've seen the return there. So how did this one pan out? Trick Room team.
Well, the first game I lost because basically he's Great Tusk and Goldingle just nasty plotted, not nasty plotted. He just make rained and everything.
Was he
It was
specs?
I think it was specs definitely.
Okay.
I did manage to clear through most of his team. Great Tusk was knocked out, so was Stone Turner, but his Goldingle and Armorers cleared through the first round. The
Okay.
second round, though, I managed to bring in Gothitelle and Sylveon again, and, and he brought out Goldingo. But so I knew this was going to happen. So I Terra fired immediately, and his Make It Rain only did like at least half damage to Sylveon.
That's a lot.
I managed to Trick Room just in time. Of course, his DD was up next. I just hyper voiced everything. I bring in T-Tar to tank in a Shadow Ball, I think, from ADD. And just before he does a Make It Rain, and Sylveon completely survives on 3 HP, I Terra Blast and knock out the Goldingo. And
That's.
then his.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say that's what we call the Cloverbell's EV spreads, man. Come on, Sylveon. Flutter Mane drops. Sylveon lives. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, the choice specs was down by 1 with Make It Rain, so his special attack was down by 1, so I managed to survive that. Of course, after that, it was T-Tar and Sylveon, but Sylveon died to the Sandstorm, so I used my own Great Tusk, which was perfect because his Great Tusk was probably Jolly Ranger. I just basically Rock Slide and did a headlong rush into them and knocked them out. And his last Pokemon was Armorage. He does Armor Cannon, does nothing to T-Tar. I headlong rushed, boom, knocked it out.
Nice. Was that game 2 or game 3?
Game 2.
Okay.
Game 3, this time he brought out Armorage and DD, I believe, on the first turn. Yeah, after that, I basically just went for a Trick Room and Hyper Voiced. Because he actually didn't go for Trick Room at all. He just did Helping Hand and Armor Cannons. I Terra fired immediately, so this way I could survive. And it worked. After that, I just used Psychic on his Armorage and Hyper Voice again. His DD. Actually, not Psychic. I taunted his DD because I knew he was going to use Trick Room again. Then I Hyper Voice. His DD was going for Trick Room. He couldn't get it. Then he actually brings in Stonejourner, which I knew had Blight Guard, so to prevent this, I used Terror Blast and Psychic to knock it out. His last one was actually Murkrow. I just hyper and I hyper voiced and I won the game.
Yeah, that like the Sylveon Gothitelle lead actually punishes this a lot because there's nothing here wants to really switch into Sylveon, whether it's the Fairy move or the Fire move. Because Goldangle drops, Great Tusk drops to Hyper Voice, Murkrow drops Hyper Voice. And then these things also, they kind of just take a lot of damage. And then once you taunt the D&D, it doesn't really do much, right? So, easy one there. Oops. So let's go into round 4 here. Now this is where you get into a little bit of a streak, right? You win pretty much 3 rounds in a row after that one. Yeah. Now we go into round 4 over here. Kendall Lux. So this is a Sandcore here.
Our team was extremely a little bit unpredictable to beat. I mean, I wasn't sure how to beat this thing, especially with the Lycan Rock. Because I knew he would fake out to the Ghost, which he actually did in the first turn. So I faked out into his T-Tar, and I actually managed to Yawn into his Lycan Rock. Into her Lycan Rock so she wouldn't be able to sleep. This Rock Slide does a nice tremendous amount of damage.
Nice.
Gothitelle almost barely didn't survive that. With 3 HP, basically, because the first Rock Slide missed Sylveon, so I was grateful for that. But then the second one hit, Sylveon flinched, and it had only like 12 HP left. But T-Tar Rock Slided after the Citrus Berry. Gothitelle had 3 HP. I survived. Then it was up to Great Tusk and T-Tar. I managed to get a headlong rush into the Lycan Rock, knocking it out. Low kicking the other T-Tar because I knew it was faster. And knocked both of them out. His next team Pokemon were Garchomp and not Garchomp, Iron Bundle and actually Goldingo. He didn't bring out the Garchomp. She didn't bring out the Garchomp in that round. I managed to Rock Slide that.
Yep.
and headlong rush into Goldingo. I luckily got the flinch on Iron Bundle, and then I just finished
That's
off with
it.
a crunch.
Yeah, that was good. Okay,
Yeah.
that
Second
was.
match,
Yep. Go ahead.
yeah.
Go. Game two.
Yep, game two. Second match, she brings out Garchomp and Tyranitar immediately. When I bring out Gothitelle and Sylveon, I do manage to get a trick room, but
Yeah.
I do flinch on Sylveon. I managed to yawn the Garchomp just before it spreads me out with Earthquake because he Terraflyings with not Terraflying. He just swaps out Tyranitar for Talonflame, which is a smart move. I do manage to at least take out the Garchomp with my Great Tusk and Tyranitar with Rock Slide the Talonflame. But this time he brings in Goldingo and like it rocks. And surprisingly, his Goldingo was faster and outspeeds, and knocks out my T-Tar and Headlong, and my Great Tusk was the last one left. Then it was Brave Bird that take. Let's see. No wait, Garchomp, Rock Minotaur, and yeah, it was Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle, Icy Winds, and when I almost knocked it out, it knocked me out on that time with Icy Wind after I took out the Goldingo.
Okay.
Yeah, wasn't able to survive that because of that Make It Rain. I thought I did, but that Make It Rain got a crit on my Tyranitar, even with the Assault Vest.
Oh. Oh well, that happens.
Yep. The third match, that was a very close one. He brings Garchomp and Talonflame.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to fake out his Garchomp as he tailwinds into Talonflame. Use Yawn and make sure Garchomp's asleep. And then I just protect.
Right.
He goes for an Earthquake. And this is where she kind of messed up because I think she actually put Taunt into Sylveon because she kind of misclicked and I managed to get a Trick Room just in time.
Okay.
I managed to Hyper Voice into Sylveon again as Garchomp's falling asleep.
Yep.
And I was able to Psychic the Talonflame as it does go for a taunt this time into my Gothitelle, and it can't swap out. I Hyper Voice and Psychicked into the Garchomp. Gothitelle got a Psychic crit on that. I was able to take out the Garchomp, and Talonflame was knocked out. His Iron Bundle and T-Tar were next.
I'm adding this to your main account.
Yeah, his Iron Bundle I was gonna go for, but I actually pressed taunt on his T-Tar because that was a misclick. I was trying to do that for Iron Bundle so he couldn't protect, but his T-Tar was actually able to tank my attack and knock out. I protected, and T-Tar used Rock Slide. He missed. He actually goes for a Hydro Pump, and predictably, he actually aims for Great Tusk. When Trick Room ended, gets a Freeze Dry onto my Great Tusk, which freezes it, which I got very unlucky. I managed to get a Crunch, and then I tried to Rock Slide on the next turn. He misses. He Icy Winds, and manages to take out the Great Tusk. My T-Tar was the only one left. I crunched because I got this defense drop, and I just needed one more hit. Rock Slide was going to miss. I knew it. She Hydro Pumps. Luckily, the Hydro Pump misses. I crunched, and I got the game.
Nice. So basically, the Sylveon Gothitelle did what he needed to do in the early game with the Talonflame Garchomp. You just trapped it and hyper voiced it. Forced the Garchomp to sleep, and then you cleaned up in the back with Tyranitar. Correct?
Oh yeah, Tyranitar was the MVP of that match.
Yeah.
Thank God I got the defense drop on that crunch.
Oh yeah, it helps a lot. That's why I kind of like Crunch sometimes instead of Assurance, just because if you do get that defense drop, it does come in very handy, especially if you have a Great Tusk coming in as well. So that's why I've always kept Crunch a little bit more than Assurance. But yeah, that was a long one. Okay, good job, Ken.
Oh, yeah.
You put up a good fight. And now we fight against one of our old friends, Nick. So here we have the full sets here because this is available on VGC Pace because Nick did well enough where his team is able to be up there. So Talonflame, Tailwind Taunt, very standard sets here. Except this is Fire Punch. That's pretty cool. I've seen that type a couple times. This is Trick Room in Prison, and then this one is just a very standard set.
Yeah, let me tell you, his Garganackle was the real MVP of that team.
Oh, I would
Monstrous
imagine.
tank. My teacher had a long battle with that thing.
You have to have Tyranitar. Yeah, that's the only way. Especially if like you know that this is Terra Ghost. Like Tyranitar has to find a way to come in, and then I would imagine he has like maybe in like these guys. Like a lot of these are good against T-Tar, but talk it out. What
Yeah.
happened?
All right, so his Flutter Mane and Talonflame with the first lead. I went with Gothitelle and Sylveon.
Okay.
I figured he was going to try going for fake out. I mean, not fake out. I mean, tailwind. So I did do some fake out to do some considerable damage, so I would prevent his Gale Wings. He Shadow Balls into my Gothitelle, which survives and negates the Citrus Berry. I Hyper Voiced, and he goes for Taunt right into my Gothitelle. He knocks out Gothitelle. I Hyper Voiced again and knock out his Flutter Mane because I knew that was the main threat. Then he brings out his Great Tusk.
Before you continue, are you saying in turn one he tried to go for Tailwind, or you just wanted to stop it?
I wanted to sound like he goes for Tailwind in that turn.
Oh, but I'm surprised because he's already faster. Why does he need to go for Tailwind?
Well, because he thought probably I was going to go for Trick Room, but he also knew I was going to probably fake out one of his Pokemon. I bet I didn't know it had come for a Cloak, but it did.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I needed to also prevent the priority Gale Wings. Because if I did Trick Room, he would be still able to use Gale Wings Brave Bird onto my
Yeah,
team.
you're right. You're right. Okay, so we continue.
He brings out Great Tusk,
Okay.
which actually manages to KO my Gothitelle. I protected on that turn. Then I go for my T-Tar, which actually I knew he was probably going to go for a close combat. I was able to Terra Fly just in time before he went for a close combat. I actually went for a Terra Blast onto his Great Tusk and managed to get a giant hit off, which does at least half the damage because of that close combat. He does Will-O-Wisp my T-Tar. I Hyper Voice cleaved right through his Great Tusk, and Talonflame and Garganackle are the only ones left.
Okay.
Talonflame. He was gonna probably go for another Brave Bird into T-Tar now that it was Terra Flying. I actually go for Rock Slide because he didn't Wide Guard, and I actually Terra Blast into his Garganactyl, which survives. He Salt Cures my he actually Salt Cure he Salt Cures my Tyranitar and it gets knocked out. Sylveon and Great Tusk were the only ones left.
Okay.
I was able to get a headlong rush at it because I thought he was gonna Terra Ghost, but he didn't, and I was able to win the first match.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm surprised. No Terra Ghost. Okay. So what happens in game two?
Pretty much the same lead. This time I try to go for Trick Room, and this time he taunts, and then I just Hyper Voice, cleave right through him. Gothitelle is knocked out by Flutter Mane. I Hyper Voice again. And this time I bring in Great Tusk because he brings in his. I actually managed to protect because he actually headlong rushed into my Great Tusk.
Okay.
I was able to do a headlong rush into him because his was actually faster. I do a considerable amount of damage. Brave Bird comes right in and at least half. Great Tusk Actually, no. He Brave Birds into Sylveon. I thought he was going to go for an EQ, but he goes for another headlong rush into my Great Tusk.
What was
Which
what was
not-
the, oh sorry what was the end game like in this game too?
Well, Talonflame was still surviving. No, he did. Talonflame gets knocked out actually because he missed Will-O-Wisp miss. I Rock Slide. He does Salt Cure. I was either going to go for Low Kick or Crunch, but he Ghost Terras into Garganackle, and I just managed to Crunch, but he couldn't because Salt Cure was taking so much damage. I was literally at 50 HP because his Garganackle just kept recovering, so I had to give up that game.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, that's what happens in those Garganackle end game scenarios. All right.
Yeah.
So you couldn't break it, and even though you did have T-Tar. So what happens in game three?
I decided to change it up a bit. This time I brought my Talonflame and Sylveon. He brings in Talonflame, and he brings in Talonflame and Flutter Mane, and he also, I believe, brings Iron Hands in that match. I managed to Brave Bird actually into his Flutter Mane because I knew he was gonna try doing damage.
Right.
He actually goes into my Talonflame. As Talonflame on his side goes for Tailwind, I Hyper Voice and knock out the
Flutter.
Yep. Then he brings in Iron Hands, actually. No Great Tusk this time.
Mm-hmm.
Just before, though, I managed to protect. I do manage to get a Tailwind because my Talonflame is faster than his Iron Hand, though, because of the max speed.
Right.
But he does knock out my Talonflame.
That's okay.
Yeah. For this round, I brought in my Tyranitar. I managed to get a Rock Slide and then Hyper Voice. The Rock Slide does get a flinch, I believe, on the Iron Hands. Hyper Voice comes in, and I am almost able to knock out the Talonflame, but it doesn't. Then he brings in Garganacl. So then I swap in and bring in my Great Tusk. He Brave Birds into my Sylveon. Sylveon gets knocked down, and so does his Talonflame.
Okay.
Then I bring in T-Tar again. This is where he Salt Cures my Great Tusk. As I go for a Headlong Rush as he tears to the Ghost, and then I go for Crunch.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost knocked out, but Salt Cure manages to not only damage my Great Tusk, but able to knock it out. My Tyranitar was burned. He protects on one turn because it was at red, and then the second turn, I was begging for a crit or something. I crunched, and it was just enough to get the KO.
Ah, good job, T-Tar. 124 attack investment.
Yeah, even while burned, it was still able to get the KO.
Yeah,
that battle was like legitimately my heart stop.
Yeah, if you miss it, then I think he just protects again, and then he probably just ends up winning eventually, right?
Yeah.
So, thankfully, T-Tar was able to clutch up against Ghost Terra Garganacl. So that was a very interesting round 5. So what we're going to do now, folks, we're going to take a little break here so Philip can catch his breath, and then we'll finish off the rest of his run here, and then we'll do some final thoughts. All right, let's take a look here at round 6.
Okay, so now we're going to go into round 6 here, and this was a Screentail team along with, Great Tusk, Torkoal, photosynthesis stuff. Arcanine here is the back-end support along with Brute Bonnet. And then you have the Choice Specs Flutter Mane. So what was going through your mind when you saw this matchup, and how did game 1 play out?
Well, when I saw the Screentail, I figured he would have Strict Room, but I wasn't sure he was going to have Play Rough. But then when he attacked me on the first turn, when I used the Talonflame Sylveon set, I made sure to taunt first, but he actually did Psychic Fangs to do damage so he can get rid of my priority. And his Arcanine was able to Flare Blitz my Sylveon, but I managed to stay calm and survive that. And Hyper Voice, doing some nice chunk of damage. His Screentail, even though taunted, had Mental Herb, so it was able to Trick Room that turn, though. However, I had Brave Bird and priority still, so I was able to at least Brave Bird again, and I was still able to be slower and Hyper Voice, doing a nice chunk of damage, knocking out that Screentail. His Arcanine did knock out my Sylveon on the mount. Then this is where it was tricky, and he brought out Torkoal, so I decided to bring out Tyranitar, and it worked like a charm. His Sun was blocked. I was able to do Rock Slide because I was slower. Of course, he did try Earth Powering, but he missed. That since I Terraflying my Tyranitar.
Smart.
I was able to take out the Arcanine, do a nice chunk of damage to Torkoal. That was when he brought his Brute Bonnet. He was able to Spore me, though. I was able to get at least a Brave Bird off and do some nice chunk of damage to Brute Bonnet. However, he was able to knock out my Talonflame. This is when Great Tusk came in. I protected that turn, and he was able to do like a Bullet Seed, though. However, I protected that and took the attack. There was one more turn of Trick Room, though. Tyranitar surviving, though, on at least 140 HP. This is where the upside came. He was able to knock out my Great Tusk after that, but my Tyranitar woke up, able to use Rock Slide, and took out the Torkoal.
Nice.
His Brute barely surviving. I finished it off with the crunch of the Trick Room wins, and it gave me game 1.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, so basically, like, even though he did get Trick Room up and he put the Torkoal in, like I guess the sand really neutered some of his offense, right? And then he can't really use Earth Power anymore because you have Terra Flying. And then yeah, that's pretty much how I guess it planned out, you know, in terms of like game one, which is really beneficial, right? Because anytime, even that's the thing with Torkoal, right? Even though it's in Trick Room, if it doesn't have the sun, like this 85 special attack isn't really doing that much damage as one would think.
It's not.
Yeah. Like even if you just max it, and even with the Torkoal, like it's still gonna do like a chunk, but it's not gonna kill you. And T-Tar with the Assault Vest and Sand, it's gonna take that relatively okay. So I had game 2 per now.
Game 2 was a little different. This time he brought Flutter Mane and Arcanine out first, when I brought Gothitelle and Sylveon out for the lead. I thought he was going to go bring in Screen Tail, but he didn't. So I did manage to pick on his Arcanine. His Shadow Ball Choice Specs nearly knocks out Gothitelle, remaining with 3 HP. Was able to restore a bit of it with Citrus Berry. Hyper Voicing, doing a nice chunk of damage. He does knock out my Gothitelle the next turn. Flare Blitz comes in, does a huge amount of damage to Sylveon. I Hyper Voice again, knock out the Flutter Mane, almost do enough damage to knock out the Arcanine. This is where he brings in Great Tusk, though, as I brought in mine, which I thought would be fast. No, wait, that was actually T-Tar. Great Tusk was after that. I bring in my T-Tar. I knew he was going to probably do close combat. I Terra Flying, and he actually Terra Grounds into his Great Tusk. And this time, he Will-O-Wisps me into my T-Tar, which does hit. I match the Rock Slide. I do get enough damage to knock out the Arcanine, but he does knock out my Sylveon with, I believe, a Headlong Rush. Because I was not expecting it to be a Assault Vest variant. This is when I bring in my Great Tusk in, and he brings in Brew Bonnet. This time, he was prepared. I was going to Terra Blast, but he had Ice Spinner, which does huge amount of damage. I do manage to at least try to take out the Great Tusk, but his Bullet Seed, though... Actually, yeah, his Bullet Seed does knock out my Great Tusk. I'm at nearly my Tyranitar, but this is when he Spores. He's able to at least get a nice, decent crunch off and finish me off with his Brew Bonnet.
I see. So we take the L in game 2. So then now we have the decisive game 3. And
this was tricky. This is where he changed up with things. He brought in Flutter Mane, Arcanine, Great Tusk, and Brew Bonnet again. No Screen Tail this time.
Mm-hmm.
For this round, he did the same thing with Arcanine and Flutter Mane. And this time I brought in Talonflame and my Great Tusk. I knew he was going to do some significant damage, so before he could swap out, he actually was trying to... He didn't actually swap out, which I was a little surprised with. I did do Headlong Rush into my Great Tusk, knock out his Arcanine, I Tailwind. He goes for a Power Jam and knocks out my Talonflame. I thought he was going to go for a Dazzling Gleam, but he didn't. This is when he brings in his own Great Tusk. Great Tusk actually doesn't terrestrialize. He actually goes for an Ice Spinner. Like, as soon as I try to go for a Headlong Rush, he swaps in his Flutter Mane for Bonnet, which actually does a decent amount of damage. But, however, I was actually able to predict that into a close combat, almost knocking out that Brute Bonnet. It was at, like, a sliver of health. He Ice Spinners me, gets my Great Tusk to at least 1 HP in the Focus Sash. And I'm able to at least Hyper Voice and do at least a lot of damage to them, knocking out both the Brute Bonnet and the Great Tusk. And getting half HP on the Great Tusk, even though it was so messy. This is when he brings in Flutter Mane. I'm still faster, I'm outspeeding. I finish off the match with a Headlong Rush into his Flutter Mane and Hyper Voice into his Great Tusk and win the match.
Nice. So basically, you kind of took over when you made the read, when you swapped out the Flutter Mane into the Brute Bonnet. Yeah, that kind of like put you in the driver's seat there. And sometimes that's really all it takes. One good read can win you a match.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure if he was going to poison Terra or not, but I got very lucky on that.
Yeah. All right, so that's the end of round 6. So now let's go into round 7. This is Andrew Johnson. This is the Electrode person. So, you know, we saw him on stream a couple times. He named his Electrode Basketball.
I love that thing. I mean, I love the name. It was perfect.
Yeah, Ston Fridge. Okay, you called it Fridge. Oh, because it has Ice Spinner. I guess that makes some sense. Goober. All right. So what was the idea here? Oh, and it's a Tailwind Hydreigon. You know, you haven't seen it much in Series 2, but
I never actually seen him use the Hydreigon in all of any of his matches. until it's top 8, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So how did how did game one pan out here?
He brings in Electrode and Arcanine. His Arcanine was definitely a self-fetch. It also had close combat, so I had to be very careful of that. So I bring in my Sylveon Gothitelle as usual. I fake out into his
It doesn't have close
Electrode.
combat here.
Oh, it did? I could have sworn it had close combat. Oh, that's right. I had play rough.
Oh.
Right. So he was able to tear a fairy on that next turn. But yeah, I managed to fake out his Electrode. I do Hyper Voice, doing a nice chunk of damage. She actually goes for a Flare Blitz onto my Gothitelle. Gothitelle takes that hit and gets half HP. It eats its Citrus Berry and revives itself. This is when he Volt Switches his Electrode and brings in Flutter Mane. This is where I Hyper Voice again, doing nice damage, and this is where he actually terrestrializes Play Roughs, and my Gothitelle survives on 1 HP.
1?
Yes, 1.
Count.
Invisible Focus Smash.
Yep.
And then I'm able to get a Trick Room at least, so he's not faster. Of course, I knew he had Extreme Speed. He Extreme Speeds and takes up my Gothitelle. And I do use Hyper Voice. I managed to take out the Arcanine, but I almost knock out the Flutter Mane, which does at least almost to the red. Shadow Balls me, and my Sylveon's almost knocked out. This is where I bring in T-Tar, though. I am able to... I don't Terrestrialize yet, but I was hoping I'm slower, which I am. I go for a Rock Slide. He swaps Flutter Mane out for Electrode. I take it out. He protects his Stone Journer, though. And then this is where I try to go for a Rock Slide again on the next turn when he brings in Flutter Mane. His Stone Journer protects. I actually was going for a Terra Blast because I wasn't sure if he was going to pull a Terra Protect. He predicts that. He goes for I believe, a Moon Blast into my T-Tar and knocks it out. This is where I bring him a Great Tusk. He actually was managing to pull a double Protect, actually. And this is when the next turn happens. The Sandstorm answers after that. I'm almost trying to get it knocked out, but he goes for Dazzling Gleam at a Rock Slide and knocks me up in the first round.
I see. Okay, so you understanding that, and then what was the game 2 adjustment?
It was very similar. I was able to predict it this time. I went for Fake Out on Arcan and I Hyper Voiced. And this time he actually Thunderbolts my Sylveon and not Volt Switches. Yep, and this is where I actually, on the next turn, protect Sylveon because I knew he was going to go for Volt Switch.
Right.
I mean, not Volt Switch. He used Scarf, so he charges Thunderbolt again, and he didn't. And this is where he actually Terrestrializes again to his Arcanine. I'm able to do some significant damage to it when in Trick Room, knocking out his Electrode and Psychic as well, leaving Stone Journer and Flutter Mane. This is where I had to take the precautions, as with Wyguard. So I actually Terra Blast into his Flutter Mane as well as Psychic, but he also does pulls that Protect. I'm actually able to Terra Blast into his Stone Journer and Psychic as well, so I knock out that. Then it's just Flutter Mane, which Shadow Balls and knocks out my Gothitelle. This is where I take the advantage with my T-Tar. Of course, he doesn't Protect, and after that, Trick Room ends. I pull, and he just calls off game 3. Yep, he basically forfeits this match, and I was able to win that one. This is where the match completely changes, as he brings in Choice Band Dragonite and cleaves half my team into submission. I bring in the same lead, Gothitelle Sylveon, because he predicted that. I was trying to do a Protect and hopefully Trick Room. Gothitelle is almost KO'd. It gets 4 HP, eats the Citrus Berry. Stone Journer doesn't actually protect, so I'm able to pull the Trick Room. And as much as I was about to put a Hyper Voice, he actually Extreme Speeds into my Sylveon, knocking it out in one shot.
One hit KO.
Yes. Stone Journer comes in with a Rock Slide, but misses. Gothitelle's able to pull a Psychic at least. I pull in my Great Tusk, and I actually swap my Gothitelle for T-Tar, and this is where things got a little surprising. His Extreme Speed hits Tyranitar as a normal rock, and it does 3/4 damage, leaving Tyranitar at 60 HP.
Now, just imagine when Tianpao comes back, man.
Yeah, that's going to cleave right through. And I try to go for a Headlong Rush, which I do take out the Stone Journer. This is where Flutter Mane comes in. And I'm able to try and get another headlong rush in, but this is when the extreme speeds again into my Tyranitar, knocking it out. Flutter Mane actually does get knocked out, and then his last Pokemon is going to be that Arcanine, as I bring in Gothitelle, and then it's just extreme speed and double extreme speed. He beats me.
That's
So
unfortunate. Yeah, I mean the Dragonite there in game 3 is just the cleaner. He says you have nothing for this, and then here it is.
at least it wasn't. At least it wasn't like the Garchomp I faced in round 4. That thing almost cleats me on round 3, but I managed to take it out. Thank God.
Okay, and then over here we play Alan, and he has a Scarlet here, which we did talk about a little bit in our most recent video. I mean, it was a more of a niche pick, and he also has a Dragonite here, but this one is Assault Vest rather than Choice Band. And he does have Mouse Hold here, so it's a little bit more of a supportive thing. So how did you approach this in game 1?
Well, game 1 was a loss, definitely. I started out with the Talonflame and Sylveon lead, because and then after that, he does go for an Icy Wind on Iron Bundle and Moosehold. Super Fang misses Sylveon, thank God. I'm able to land a clean Hyper Voice, do some significant damage to Iron Bundle and Moosehold. I go for a Brave Bird after that, but then he goes for a Hydro Pump, actually, and takes out my Talonflame. Hyper Voice is able to cleave both Moosehold and Iron Bundle, though. This is where he brings in Goldingo and Scarlet, as I actually brought in my own Iron Bundle, and not Great Tusk and Tyranitar. Iron Bundle was able to at least get a freeze dry on his Scarlet, because I wasn't sure if he was going to Terrasilize, but he didn't. He did get a freeze. Unfortunately, he broke out of that immediately. And then this is where I actually Terrasilize my Sylveon, so this way he can take the hit. He actually is able to use Make It Rain, bring my Sylveon down to a sliver of health, and he bulk ups his Scarlet. And this is when I believe he Terrasalizes it. Was it Terragrass's Scarlet?
It was Terra Steel, actually.
Oh, that's right. It was Steel.
It's interesting.
And I knew I couldn't use a Fire type move, especially with the Flash Fire ability. And this is when she Shadow Sneaks Sylveon, knocking it out. And yeah, I forgot that Make It Rain does knock out earlier my booster energy Iron Bundle, which is when T-Tar was the only one left. I do manage to get a crunch on the Goldingo, but then he actually Bitter Blades me. The Goldingo actually survives and does Make It Rain and knocks me out, getting a crit. Yeah, because it also had Metal Coat, because that boasts up the Steel type moves.
Yeah, I'm just looking at his team. Like Tyranitar actually does really well against a lot of this. Actually, almost all of it, because you have the Dark move here for Sarah Legend Goldingo. Although he does have Terrestrialization, you have the Flying Tech here for Great Tusk, the Rock move for this, and then Mouse. Yeah, it's and then if he does Terra, this is Dark. Like, I think if we just like preserve Tyranitar in some shape or form, it does really well against a lot of this.
Oh yeah, that Tyranitar helped me on game 2 with that. Game 2 is pretty much the same thing, but this time I went with the Trick Room variant, my good old Gothitelle Sylveon lead. He starts again this time with Goldingo and Moosehold this time.
Okay.
Super Fang is actually managing to hit Gothitelle, though. I protect. I hear him do actually nasty plots, so I got lucky with that. And then I go for Trick Room. Gothitelle still at 5 HP. I managed to Terrasilize, go for a Hyper Voice, and then I'm actually going for a Psychic, knocking out the Moosehold. He does knock out my Gothitelle, unfortunately, and Sylveon survives on at least a sliver of 12 HP. So I got lucky with that. This is when Tyranitar and Great Tusk come in. He brings in Scarlet, and once again, his own Great Tusk now. Scarlet was actually Terrasilises on the next turn. He protects. But this is where I'm able to at least use Hyper Voice, getting a nice chunk of damage on his own Great Tusk because he didn't protect for some reason. And then I actually go for a low kick on his Great Tusk and knock it out. Scarlet is his last Pokemon, and I actually go for a crunch and another. This is where I bring my own Great Tusk in. Headlong Rush, and I will get the match too.
Right. Okay. That's good. And then the decisive game 3.
This is where he brings Dragonite in. I do get it knocked out, though. Like, I was able to predict that this one had multi-scale, and I faked out it. It was Dragonite and Iron Bundle on this turn. I fake out the Dragonite, get a Hyper Voice up, doing a nice chunk of damage to also Iron Bundle, knocking it out. This is where I protect. I go for Trick Room. Gothitelle does survive barely. And this is where he extreme speeds into my Gothitelle, knocking it out. I do land another Hyper Voice, knocking out his Iron Bundle, but Dragonite's at least at a cleave of health. This is where he brings in his Goldingo. I bring in my Great Tusk. I thought it'd be faster because I thought he was Timid Nature, but I realized I was wrong. I do land a Hyper Voice. I managed to knock out the Dragonite before he extreme speed into my into my Great Tusk, and this is where he does a Make It Rain, knocks both my Goldingo and knocks out my Sylveon and my Great Tusk out at the same time because his Goldingo was faster in Trick Room. This is when Tyranitar was up next. I didn't terrestrialize it yet, but just in case, I did manage to get a crunch off the Goldingo, knocking it out. And this is where Cerledge used Bulk Up.
Ooh,
and this is,
play.
yeah. Yep. And then terrestrialize as well to a Steel type. I try to go for a crunch. He Bitter Blades me because I terrestrialized. He does half damage to me and heals himself up, and then Trick Room ends. Just when I'm just about to finish it up, he Bitter Blades me again and knocks me out.
If you killed the Scarlet, you win the match.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I almost did, but Trick Room just cost me that last turn. If he did text, I could have won.
Oof, that's unfortunate,
Yep.
but that's okay. We almost had him, and at least you played it relatively well. And yeah, it's just like this Cerledge Goldango stuff, like that you like double goals, but then one of them is like Steel Terra. It's always really interesting, to say the least.
Oh, for sure.
Yep. All right, now we go. At this point, you're 5-3, and now you're looking for 6-3 just to try and get some CP out of this championship points. And this is the last match you face. It's basically Arcanine and Mungus bundle, the good stuff with Flutter Mane, Iron Hands, and a Dragonite over here.
This was the signing match, and it got me. When hang on, I'll be right back. My dog's trying to beg for something. Can I just put on?
Yeah,
just
sure.
Put.
Okay, so how did you approach this game 1 match?
Well, it was a pretty standard format for this one. This was Arcanine, Flutter Mane, and it was actually Iron Hands and a Moongus of this one. For the first part,
okay.
Yeah, I bring in Gothitelle in my Sylveon lead. I managed to fake out his Arcanine. His Flutter Mane does a nice chunk of damage to Gothitelle, almost critting it, leaving it at least 46 HP, because I knew this one wasn't Specs or Light Orb. And I do manage to allow the Hyper Voice, taking a lot of damage for Flutter Mane and Arcanine. And this is where I bring in the Trick Rooms, which unfortunately he reads that and is able to he's able to take out my Gothitelle, and this is where I Hyper Voice again. When Philip almost knocks Sylveon out, I managed to get the win, and then Iron Hands and Amoongus come out. This is where I bring in T-Tar. I thought he was going to go for Fake Out, but then I terrestrialized into my Flying type, because I thought he was going to Spore, but the weird thing is he didn't Fake Out. He Drain Punches right into T-Tar. I managed to get a Terra Blast out into Amoongus, but he actually Spores into my T-Tar for that round. I'm actually able to be faster, and this is where he terrestrializes his Iron Hands into a Grass type. I'm able to be faster. I terrestrialize into my Sylveon Fire. I Hyper Voice, and I managed to get the Amoongus out. Tyranitar is still asleep, and it gets knocked out by Wild Charge. And this is where Great Tusk and Sylveon won the match with Hyper Voice in a close combat.
Yeah, I figured. I mean, there's not much you can do at that point when you're just doing a 3v1. So then what happens next?
Pretty much the same team. This time, though, I was ready for his Flutter Mane. So I do the same technique on Arcanine as well as Sylveon, with Hyper Voice and the Fake on the Arcanine Shadow Ball. And I predicted it. This time I swapped out Gothitelle for Tyranitar, so I could take that Shadow Ball, and it worked really well. He does go for I think a Flare Blitz into Sylveon, almost knocks it out. And I Hyper Voiced, and I'm able to knock out his Flutter Mane, doing a lot of damage to his Arcanine. Arcanine surviving a little HP. And then this is where he brings in Iron Hands, as I swap Tyranitar out for Gothitelle, as he does Will-O-Wisps and burns my Gothitelle.
Oh, wonderful.
And and he also Wild Charge Drain Punches into Gothitelle as well.
Oh, beautiful. That's the perfect turn.
Yep, I Hyper Voice, and he is able to tank that with Assault Vest Iron Hands. I am able to knock out his Arcanine. And this is when he brings Amoonguss again, and just to be safe, I use Taunt. I made sure his Amoonguss couldn't use Spore. I protect that turn, because I thought he was going to go for a Wild Charge, but this time he Wild Charges Gothitelle and knocks him out. And this is where I bring in T-Tar again, because I was a little worried. He actually does Pollen Puff. I was trying to Hyper Voice, because I thought he was going to take it out as I Terastallize. I'm able to land a Rock Slide, and I begged for a flinch. He got a flinch off Iron Hand, so he didn't take any damage. And same thing with Amoonguss. He got double flinched.
Beautiful.
So, and then I just go for a Terra Blast onto his Terastallized Iron Hands, which does a huge amount of damage and knocks it out. And I finish the match with a Rock Slide. But that unfortunately misses. He actually got out the taunt and spores my Sylveon. Sylveon was the last Pokemon standing, but because it was awake, then I do manage to go for another Crunch and knock out the Amoonguss.
Yeah, and then that's pretty much it. Basically, what it all really came down to was the swap from Gothitelle to T-Tar. You took
at least like 15 to 30 points of HP from that Shadow Ball.
Not very much. Yeah, and that's really what it came down to, because then after that, you're in the next turn, you're just in a better spot, and then you just kind of clean them from there. So that nice job there. So basically, after that, that gives you your 6th win, and then you finish 6-3. You're able to get 40 CP as you eventually find out from the results, which is good. It means our plans and our efforts did due diligence, and now you're on your way to qualifying for Worlds. Almost, well, not almost, but yeah. I mean, this is like step 1 or something. Are you trying to go to any other regionals?
I'm hoping to maybe go for Charlotte or Milwaukee. Or even Fort Wayne. I'll have to go to either one of those, or definitely for the Hartford, Connecticut, because that's actually close to home.
Oh, of course. All right, so one more time, this is the team. Eventually, we'll probably showcase this on ladder a little bit. Once the ladder resets. Actually, it already did reset, because this is pretty much the next day. But yeah, funny. Great job here.
Yeah. Funny, this team actually got me to Master Rank. I actually got 21 wins and 4 losses from it yesterday before it ended.
Yeah, Gothitelle Sylveon lead is a pretty good oppressive thing. Now, again, Flutter Mane's also really good here in this slot. You're faster. You can do more damage, right? But I just like the bulk on this Sylveon over here. You're just able to take a little bit more. And then the Yawn stuff can come in handy in certain games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then, of course, you got the hyper offensive core with Talonflame, Great Tusk. And then Tyranitar in the back end switch is always really, really nice, just depending on the matchup. So great job there, Philip. Is there anyone you'd like to thank or shout out before we wrap it up here?
I'd like to thank the Masshold tourney for at least let me practice team that got me 6th place, and the co-stars who helped me, Rafiki VGC, Rylick, and Jenny, who helped support me to get this through. It's a real big shout out for them to help me with this.
Who was the last one?
Janae who helps forecast and
VGC.
Yeah, she's
okay.
Yeah, she's the one who helped me try to get the team ready, and she was also the one who gave me a big support on this team. I feel grateful for her, and I'm glad that she was able to at least do well at the bottom regionals.
Did she use the same team, or did she use something else?
Something else, but she did her best.
Nice. All right. Well done. Well done. Okay, so now again, moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, again, if this is something you're interested in, right? If you're trying to get a team ready for a regional or an online tournament, we have the tier 3 sub to the channel, which is how InfernoProd, aka Philip, found us. Okay, if you just click the link in either the comment or the video description, there is a link to join the channel with the tier 3 sub, or every single video has a join button, and then we'll build you this a squad like this, with the EVs from scratch, and then then you're able to just have a team ready for a tournament, just like here, Philip. So what'd you think, Philip? Was the tier 3 sub worthwhile?
It was definitely worth it.
Oh, of course. For 40 CP, why not? All right, folks.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And then now we head into upcoming other regionals, and then preparation for not Series 3, but Regulation C.
Yep.
What a name change.
I'm gonna have to get ready for the 4 legendaries.
Oh yes.
I'm not sure which one I'm gonna use because they all look very valuable.
Oh yes.
Personally, I would go with Ting-Lu. That thing is bulky. It's perfect for assault vest or choice band or even defensive cores.
Can you imagine Ting-Lu and Garganic on the same team?
Oh, definitely.
Oh,
especially with Salt Cure and Ruination combinations.
Oh no. All right. Well, that's a discussion for another day, folks. We'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good one.